if Hikaru beat Wesley 47.5 out of 48, like this is impossible, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But Hikaru was playing people.
Lock him in. Fabi, we're getting a lot of call-outs. One of them being from Vladimir. Anish also called us out for not having any balls to respond to Vladimir. But in fact, we did want it to respond to Vladimir, and we've had Vladimir on our podcast not a long time ago for around 2 hours. So definitely we've been open to discussions. Now, in his recent post, he called you out. He said specifically for Fabiano Caruana on farming, because we did discuss farming in our latest podcast when we discussed cheating. Now, what he says is, I have listened to Fabiano Caruana's podcast explaining the ratings on chess.com do not correspond to the real strength of players if they are farming, because you can choose your opponents, and players not farming don't choose their opponents. It is partly true. Sorry, Fabiano, a bit superficial explanation. What's your take on that?
Well, okay. So first of all, we're always happy to talk to Vladimir. Of course, he's one of the greatest players in the history of chess. I think people they generally know that, but of course, with people who are new to chess, they might not know him so well because he hasn't played competitively for a few years, but he became world champion by defeating Garry Kasparov, right? So this is
absolute legend.
So of course, we're not trying to there's no ill will here for sure. Nothing bad between us. I feel like we have come to a disagreement when it comes to this. Because I did think about it. I mean, whenever there's some extraordinary results, it's natural to think about it. There's a few reasons why, and I'll get to what Vladimir is saying, although he doesn't really refute what I say. He doesn't really counter it. He just kind of says that it's not correct. But I'll just explain why I don't have suspicions that these streaks are anything unusual. Of course, they could be unusual for some players, for sure. Like, if you see a guy who's 2,500 and he becomes 3,300 in chess.com, this seems like a rather unlikely. When it comes to Hikaru, so he went on several streaks, right? Hikaru has gone on a number of streaks. He very often beats people by huge scores.
The one that was mentioned was the one when he won, I believe, 46 or 45 and a half
47
games.
and a half out of 48.
47 and a half out of 48. Not against one particular opponent, but against three of them, two of them being international masters, one of them a FIDE master.
Yeah, the first thing is that, of course, it's not like he played 48 games on chess.com and he won 47 and a half of them. He's played 30,000 games or whatever it is, and within this set of games, there's a small subset or several small subsets that are, let's say, statistical anomalies. You can call that if you want.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like if you just wake up in the morning and you go on a rampage, that's different than if you are playing thousands and thousands and thousands of games, and within that, like maybe he lost the game right before that streak, and maybe he lost the game right after. So you're just picking only one small section of that. So that's one thing. In terms of Hikaru's ability to beat people very heavily, especially weaker players, although he is, of course, able to beat players his level, but not to that extent. Like if Hikaru beat Wesley 47.5 out of 48, like this is impossible, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But Hikaru was playing people.
Lock him in.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm not going to condemn someone just on the basis of one result, but if anyone beats Wesley 47.5 out of 48, it's impossible. So yeah, that person
doesn't happen.
That's a computer.
Yes.
Here we're talking about Hikaru playing significantly weaker players. Now, whatever their FIDE ratings were, 2,300, 2,400, they are, whatever it is, much weaker than him. And he's playing, I think it's important to note, without increment. With increment, I think it's significantly more difficult. And I think if we look at Title Tuesday results, we're probably not going to see many big streaks. We might see the occasional 10, 10.5, or even 11 out of 11, but those are 11 out of 11, I think, is like once in a blue moon, maybe once a year or something it happens. 10.5 out of 11, also very rare, and so on.
But Title Tuesday, once again, there's a big differentiation in the time format. Title Tuesday, it's 3+1. The streak that Kramnik was referencing was 3+0. And that's a huge difference because very often, and I've looked at some of the games from that streak, Hikaru was in big trouble, but he was still flagging his opponents.
Yeah. So
in worse losing positions.
I do feel like, although it might seem that this increases the randomness factor, I do feel that it actually increases the chance of a streak.
For sure. For Hikaru specifically, because he's such a fast player.
I think maybe even in general, because it lowers the chance of like having a level game. Like a player who's strong, but not as strong as a top grandmaster like Hikaru, can, in one particular game, definitely play at an equivalent level. But if you add that extra element of like you eliminate the potential for a draw or minimize it, because now there's going to be a lot more decisive games because it's just someone gets flagged very often. That's going to benefit the stronger player,
of course.
I think, especially of course.
I think so too. Yeah.
If that stronger player has very good mouse skills, and we do know that Hikaru probably, with a few other people, has, okay, like maybe Andrew Tang has the best mouse skills in the world. Maybe Danya is up there as well, but Hikaru is certainly up there. In terms of like 1-0, he is, we have to say, the best 1-0, 1 minute no increment player in the world. He proved that in this Bullet Chess Championship. So he has mouse skills. For example, I don't possess these skills. I can play Bullet, but I don't play Bullet well because I flag people. I can play Bullet well because I generally play chess well, and then when it comes to like mouse skills, I'll be completely outclassed by someone like Andrew, by someone like Bordnik, by someone like Danya, not to mention Hikaru, Magnus, Alireza, and so on. So that's one thing, that the no increment does improve the chances. Now, I was thinking about myself, and I even like did a small experiment, if you can call it that. I played a 27, more or less 2,700 chess.com rated player, a grandmaster. Mm-hmm. And we played 11 games. I won 11-0. And it sort of convinced me that I didn't have time to continue playing because I had to go to dinner. But it sort of convinced me that I could continue this. I could probably keep beating this player because he was getting, more and more, like the games were not close. At the start, they were kind of close, and I flagged him and I tricked him and so on. And then at the end, it was just whitewash. I was just beating this player without any fight, really. Resistance in general decreases as you continue getting beat up. Yeah, unless that person who is beating you starts to feel bored or sorry. That can actually happen. You can just feel like bad about doing this.
But this was not the case for Hikaru because he was in fact trying to establish some new records.
Yeah, he wanted to increase his chess.com rating.
He was pretty motivated.
No, to me, it just seems like this is something which is unusual, but certainly can happen and is maybe even likely to happen in a huge set of games. And not only that, if one player I would pick to rack up the streak, it would probably be, two players I would pick, Magnus and Hikaru. I would probably pick those guys. Now, I think other players can do it. I think if someone really put their mind to it, and I don't care enough to do it. I was just a bit curious. But I think I could do it. I think I could probably increase my rating to 3,200 without significant obstacles. If I decided to, like, let's say for the next week, just play nonstop on 3-minute blitz. I
want to go through one of his possibility that he mentioned. The losing side has an artificially far too high rating. Means he was cheating before to get that rating. And this time he didn't cheat, which explains such low probability underperformance. So basically underperforming, Hikaru's opponents were underperforming and therefore they should be examined.
Well, okay, I don't know his opponent, so I cannot speak to that whatsoever. It is a possibility that this just goes to what I was kind of saying, which Kramnik responded to, which is that the chess.com ratings are not really meaningful. I even used the word meaningless, but I was exaggerating a little bit. Okay, they're not meaningless. Of course, they do have meaning.
Of course not.
Like Hikaru and Magnus are number 1, 2 on chess.com for a reason. They're the best online blitz players. I don't think that we're disputing that. So there's a reason why they're number 1, 2. But I use the example of Alireza and Hikaru because their chess.com rating difference is like 200 points, sometimes even 300 points, right? Depending. which is why it's not much meaning, because Alireza and Hikaru are very similar skilled in terms of blitz chess, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, in terms of chess as a whole. I mean, I would say they're pretty evenly matched across time controls. So that's why the reason why these ratings don't have much meaning is because you can pick your opponents, so you can beat players who you're very strong against, right? You don't, in a Title Tuesday, for example, it's a Swiss system. You get who you get. You don't pick your opponent. You get this person, you get that person. The other reason why ratings might not be meaningful is because there are different time controls. And now, when it comes to, let's say, 5-minute, 2-second increment or 3-minute, 2-second increment, this is blitz, and probably you will see the same best players. But when you remove increment, you do start to see, I think, some players rise a bit more than others. Mm-hmm. For example, Daniel. I mean, he's a very good blitz player, but he does get better when you remove the increment.
Correct. Yes.
He goes from maybe
exponentially better.
Yeah, I mean, he goes from very good, but let's say like there's 100 players in the world who can compete with him.
Yes.
Let's say he's top 100.
He's almost always top 5 on chess.com.
Yeah, and then you take away increment, and he can easily go to top 10 at the very minimum.
I don't think he ever won a Title Tuesday.
Maybe not. I mean, Daniel's a great player.
That's 3+1.
Winning the Title Tuesday, you can be a great player and not win it. But it's very clear that he is a player who excels when the increment, and also when the time control gets shorter and shorter.
Yes.
He also has tremendous mouse skills. I have played him over the board.
Yeah, he's ridiculously good.
Without increment, well. 1 minute, no increment. And he beat me.
Yeah.
Pretty, I don't know if it was pretty heavily, but it was a convincing score he got against me. Maybe it was like 7-4 with some draws, something like that. So it's not even like online. He's just very good at 1 minute, no increment. Now, I think if we played bullet chess over the board and we added 1 second, I wouldn't have to worry about getting flagged. And I think that I would be the favorite. I can't say for sure, but I think I would be the favorite. But this just shows that like you have different time controls, so you're not measuring one thing. Just like when we measure blitz as a certain group of time controls, and we measure rapid as a different group of time controls. But there are a lot of differences even in between these groups, and especially when you have the option of increment or not, because over the board we only have increment. Well, okay, I won't say only, but the last time I played without increment, I think was 2017. So it almost never happens. So that's the other thing, that ratings are not so meaningful because you can pick your opponents, because time controls vary so vastly, and also I believe because, yes, there is probably some players who are cheating. I don't know who they are, but they are pumping their rating up. And then if they stop cheating at some point, that rating will go away and it will go to other players. So you have a little bit of an artificiality there.
Yeah. And last but not least, are we ever getting Vladimir back on the podcast? What's
Okay, so I think that like we really do start to exhaust the cheating discussion a little bit. I think we said everything that we can say. I also feel like it's a bit too hot of a subject at the moment.
It's kind of like a he said, she said type of thing. Almost turns into that.
Like at the moment, I don't really see the point. At some point, I think there will be a development in terms of cheating in chess. Something will happen. It's also like it's on the brink, right? Everyone's
and it always something is happening. Yeah.
But so I just, my thoughts are cheating is a very important subject. It needs to be mitigated, minimized. Yeah. Chess.com is the one who actually has to do that when it comes to their platform. It's not really on the players. They're in a difficult position because they can have very strong suspicions about someone, but if you're like 80% sure, now for you it might be good enough, for me it might be good enough, but for them maybe it's not good enough to take action.
Yeah. And
they do have also some responsibility, and also they probably don't want to put themselves in a difficult position. So they're in a difficult situation in general. They might suspect someone is cheating and damaging tournaments, but they also don't know if it's the best thing to ban that person until they're 100% sure, or 99%, or whatever it is. Now, is that the best approach? I've said this internally to them. I think that one thing which is really necessary is to have fair play checks for all prize money events.
Yeah.
Title Tuesday,
including
at the moment,
Title Tuesdays. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen people say that, yeah, sometimes you're randomly selected for a check.
Not so much. I mean, sure, maybe they will ask you to like turn on your camera or stuff like that.
But the problem is, all you're doing there is like, okay, first of all, you can't check everyone, so you can miss someone.
You've already cheated.
Yeah, but the player could have cheated and then they stopped cheating.
Yeah.
So they already did the damage in the tournament. Like in my last Title Tuesday, I withdrew halfway. Okay, I'm not going to say why, but let's say I didn't feel too good about the tournament.
Yeah.
And
there needs to be anti-cheating measures for every single prize event. Now, I understand that that's very difficult because every single Tuesday you have, 500 players participating in Title Tuesday? That's a big Zoom call.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, what can you say? It's probably going to limit the amount of players who will join because most people probably won't want to go through that. On the other hand, I think it's better to have restrictive access than to have a tournament where cheating is rampant. And people might think, oh, Magnus won the last Title Tuesday, so, well, how much cheating could there be? Because the best players are winning anyway. And to that, I would counter that you don't know who is cheating against who. They're not going to cheat against everyone. They might be selective. They might be more worried to cheat against some people. But that there are people cheating, they influence the results. And this will lead to a tournament which, even if Magnus is the best player and he wins, and you might think, oh, well, the best player won, so what could have gone wrong?
Yeah.
Still, maybe someone else would have been able to challenge him,
to
challenge Magnus in that tournament, but someone cheated against them, and then they weren't able to because they lost early on in the tournament, for example. I'm just saying that these tournaments, the results become, I won't say meaningless again, but they become less meaningful if you have any cheating, and I do suspect that it is very significant in every Title Tuesday. There are going to be a lot of cheaters. Now, in terms of chess.com, I think they're very receptive to the problem. They understand the problem, even if we disagree on the amount. But they are receptive to the problem, and hopefully, I mean, I can't solve the issue. Maybe they can. I guess we'll see.
It's a very nuanced discussion, and you have to curate your message not to go into a completely different direction where everybody's just going to belittle what you're saying, right? Because it's a very important message. It's a very important message. It's a very important discussion, but you just have to be careful and curate the way you portray that. Now, directionally, I feel that chess.com is doing the right thing, and I think they're taking steps to try to catch these cheaters. And at some point, those measures will be increased. The penalties will be increased as well.
I hope so. We can't say for sure what will happen in the future, but
But we've been discussing this internally as well, and we know that the penalties at some point are going to get tougher.
Yeah,
which directionally.
I think that is probably the best thing to do. I know it's very difficult, because you understand, like, we're not putting, when we say ban this person, ban that person, we're not putting ourselves on the line. They actually have to put themselves on the line when they ban an account, because that person can go public.
They can sue. They can take legal action.
In the worst case, I don't think that's possible anymore. I think there's a new clause.
Terms of service,
in terms of service. I think that it has to be arbitrated. Some legal stuff that I don't really understand, but it's probably it probably makes their life a bit easier in case something goes this direction, right? Becomes a public scandal, for example, like happened last year. Becomes a huge mess for everyone involved. Yeah. Everyone's paying lawyers and takes a year out of their time to settle this whole thing. By the way, I say settle it in the general sense. I don't mean the legal sense. I actually have no idea.
We don't know what happened.
I have absolutely no idea what happened. I just meant like settle it as in
finish the process.
Yes. Finish the process and how related it.
Yeah. No. Again, directionally, I feel we're on the right track. It's not going to be a snap of the fingers and all the cheaters are going to disappear. It's going to take time. It's going to take penalties and changes in the way chess.com does things, in the way enforcers in generally do things. And I think directionally we're on the right track.
But I think in general, it's important that we focus on the problem and not on Hikaru.
Let's not get sidetracked.
Beating players who are much weaker than him for fun. I mean, he's doing this stuff just for the entertainment of his viewers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. I'll just like to say one small Hikaru story. So this was after a tournament in St. Louis. I think you were there actually. It was at like the after party after the tournament was finished. I don't remember the tournament. Maybe it was U.S. Championship. Maybe it wasn't. I was playing someone.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I was playing someone. I won't say who it was, but let's say 2600 level player. So we're just kind of casually playing, and at some point we decide to play time odds. So I've played time odds with players, with grandmasters on occasion, and I guess it's sort of like a party trick, right? So like you can play with 1 minute against 3, and depending on the level of your opponent, it's possible to do well against them. Sometimes even very well. There's one grandmaster
it's a party trick. So bullying 2600 is a party trick.
Well, 2600 is a stretch, but there was one player a grandmaster who I was playing 1 minute against 5 minutes and absolutely destroyed, like for money, and took a bunch of his money. But this player was, let's say, that player was a 2450, let's say grandmaster.
Okay.
So this was a 2600 level grandmaster, strong player. I think I decided to play 1 minute against 3 minutes. He was like, "There's absolutely no chance for you." I was like, "No, well, let me give it a shot."
Yeah.
There wasn't any chance for me. I just get beaten pretty heavily. So this guy was also good at blitz. Then Hikaru decides to take him on under the same conditions, and I thought that he wouldn't be able to. It just seemed like the guy was too confident against me. He was playing too well, too relaxed, not getting nervous. The match was very competitive with Hikaru. Hikaru was, he wasn't beating him in the match, but it was very even. It was, I don't remember the final score, but they were playing, I think, for money even. Obviously, it was very competitive. Hikaru is a competitive player, especially, like, I don't get competitive with these things so much, but he really does want to win these things, especially when it comes to blitz chess over the board in person. We mentioned the Ray Robson that they were playing against. He was playing against Ray Robson with time odds. Also, like, to me, it's just unbelievable to be able to do that against Ray, who's a very, very good blitz and bullet player. So I understand that he's able. These players who are weaker than him, he's able to play, even if they're very good, at an extremely high level, and I think more so than other players, he does thrive against weaker opposition. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's like a trickiness factor or something, but he's able to really get their number very often. So when it comes to like 2400s, online, where he's even better, without time odds, I'm like, okay, this is not at all a crazy idea that he would absolutely wipe the floor with them. It's not going to happen all the time. But it can happen occasionally for sure. Yeah, it's not weird at all. That's really what I think. I thought about it. I understand if people find it weird, but after thinking about it, I was like, yeah, this doesn't really seem weird at all for Hikaru.
Yep, and there you have it. That's our response. That's our opinion. Make with that whatever you wish. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.